Hello and welcome to episode 15 of a DM's Guide to the Tomb of Annihilation. Well, let's say thank you very much for your support from the Tomb of Annihilation subreddit, your support for the last episode. If you are interested in getting some tips and tricks for the campaign, except for my videos, the Tomb of Annihilation subreddit is a really good place to go. I definitely recommend it. So in today's episode, we are going to look at Ghastly Door on 51. We're going to go to area 52, the throne room, and then we'll finish off with 53, the Crypt, the Sun Queen. And I have been going through your comments, and I am going to try to speak a little bit slower this time, just so you can understand a bit better. And again, put your ideas in the comment section below. And since we are very, very close to the end of the Tomb of Annihilation, let me know what campaign you want me to do next. So let's jump right in. And before I forget, if you like this content, remember to like and subscribe. And if you're feeling generous, there's a Patreon link below. So let's begin with area 51, the Ghastly Door. What appears to be a large stone door looms at the end of the hallway, but it bears no handles or hinges. Jutting from the wall on either side of the door are two matching bronze sculptures, each the head and neck of a serpent with fangs bared. On the lintel above the door is inscribed the following message in common: warm like flame, cold for the cruel, still for the dead, gruel for the ghoul. Yeah, it's very straightforward. So when you come to this door here in 51, you have two snakes that jut out from either wall. And if your character inspect this, they notice that there's dried blood at the back of these serpents' necks, and they can hear hissing and gulping and rattling if they listen to the snake. Behind these snakes, you have three ghasts on each side. If you feed 1 pint of fresh blood to either of these snakes, the ghast will be fed and they will lift up this door here, gaining access to 52. The door weighs £1,000 and can be lifted by characters with a combined strength of 33 or more. If the characters do so, however, this is when the ghasts are released and they will attack the characters. If your characters feed the ghasts and they notice these doors can be unlocked with a knock spell or they be forced open with a DC 22 athletics check. So if your characters do get attacked by the ghasts, how do ghasts work in combat and what makes these ghasts really scary? So ghasts are one of the best undead creatures because they're actually quite intelligent. So they have low intelligence, which means they can read and write. They have high strength, high dexterity. They're not that charismatic, but everything else is average. 36 hit points, 13 armor class, and they have two really cool abilities. And just before I forget, they're immune to being charmed, exhausted, and poisoned. So they have a stench ability, which means that if you're within 5 feet of a ghast, you have to make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw or be poisoned at the start of your next turn. This means your characters will have disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. And for instance, if you're a fighter and you're getting up close, disadvantage is not a good thing. They've also got Turning Defiance, which means that they get advantage on any saving throws against the effect of Turn Undead. So with their action, they can bite or claw. And if I was doing this, I would definitely use their claws. They only get one attack and it's more likely to hit. It's a +5 instead of a +3. Does slightly less damage. However, if your character they're attacking is not undead, they can make them be paralyzed if they fail a DC 10 Constitution saving throw. And while they're paralyzed, a paralyzed character is incapacitated, it can't move or speak, and the creature automatically fails strength and dexterity saving throws. And if it's hit by a creature, it automatically does a critical hit within 5 feet of it. If the player characters came and they got attacked by these ghasts, from my understanding, this door is not being held up. So if your characters lift this door and they come out, I would get the ghast to surprise them, causing this door to shut. So ideally, this might split the party. Then I would get as many of these ghasts to surround one character. And my plan is to get these ghasts to attack as often as they can, so the paralyzing effect takes place. And as soon as a player character is paralyzed, they would leave the paralyzed creature and go straight on to the next target. And because they're intelligent creatures, if they believe that they'll lose in combat, I would get them to flee. However, it depends how you feel as a DM, as in if you believe they're very, very hungry, they will just attack and attack and attack, and they won't care for their own lives. But I believe since they're intelligent, they will attack one character at a time, get them paralyzed, and then rinse and repeat. And if they can, they'll separate the party with this door right here. And since the door is £1,000, it requires a combined strength for 33 to lift it. If you have less than 3 characters, it'll actually be quite difficult to lift this door up. So let me know how you got on with this trap. Did your characters ignore the ghast like my player characters did? Or did they end up in a battle and did you lose any characters in this? Remember to comment below on your experience. That allows other DMs to see how you got on. And the more people discuss it, the more we can learn from the encounter. We're now on to 52, Throne Room. 52. Throne Room. This vaulted chamber features a 10-foot deep sunken floor surrounded by ledges without railings. Alcoves along the edges hold painted wooden statues of hornet-headed humanoid warriors, each wearing a grass skirt and clutching a spear. A gruesome throne lashed together of bone and strips of skin stands atop the west ledge. A fearsome horned skull surmounts the throne, and small skulls are piled around it. The seat of the throne appears to be made of stretched skin and has a metal scepter resting upon it. Shuffling around the sunken portion of the room are 3 gaunt humanoid figures in dusty robes draped in cobwebs. Their eyes and mouths stitched shut, armed with brushes and clay pots of pigment. They paint the walls and pillars with grim, poorly rendered illustrations. With the throne room, this is one of my favourite rooms in the Tomb of Annihilation. So what it allows you to do is tell different stories with the paintings on the walls. If your characters arrive in this room and they're inhabited by either Cautious Obalaka or Screwed Papazole, you hear these words. Cautious Obalaka advises her host to not disturb the throne or pick up the scepter, but admits not knowing for certain that either is harmful. Screwed Papazole realizes that the throne is made from the bones of dead Omalians and the skull of Omu's great Minotaur champion Cargos. So you have the throne right here. You then have 3 figures down here, and they are known as the Blind Painters. I would have to say they're probably my favourite characters in the Tomb of Annihilation. And buried under this floor is my favourite monster, and one of the reasons why I bought this book. This is the zombie Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I believe this monster is everything that is good about D&D. It's a T-Rex, and it's filled with zombies. It's fantastic. Makes me unbelievably happy. What we'll do is we'll discuss this later on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you one of my fantastic illustrations of this room, but then I'm going to discuss the Blind Painters and what I did in my campaign with them, because I added in some comic relief because part of this campaign got very dark for my players. And then at the end, I'm going to discuss this throne and Kurgos the Minotaur. So you can see my illustration here. From the east, you have the door with the ghasts to the east, and you come in and you have a ledge that surrounds this room. And in the middle, you have the 10-foot pit. The ceiling from the ledges is 15 foot tall, and you have the throne right here. You then have the 4 pillars that go to the ceiling, generally are the rooms. Remember, 10 foot deep, 15 foot tall. Got the throne here. So let's discuss the blind artists. So despite their blindness, each has the ability to perceive and paint scenes of pain, carnage, and death that have occurred within the Tomb of the Nine Gods. And these 3 servants are undead servants of Acererak. And as your characters come into the room, one of the artists is presently painting over scenes depicting the fall of the Company of the Yellow Banner. All that remains is an image of a human male, the late Lord Brixton, which can be found in Area 63, choking on poisonous gas. The other 2 artists are in the process of painting images that capture the player characters' harrowing exploits in the tomb so far. Choose memorable moments in which one or more party members were badly wounded or killed. The undead artists have the statistics of zombies, and instead of dark vision, each has blind sight with 30 feet, and they have no attacks. And if any of these artists get attacked, your players get attacked by a Tyrannosaurus zombie, who bursts up from the cavity beneath the floor and attacking, leaving a 20-foot diameter hole and scattered floor tiles behind. So this T-Rex can get through this door. However, it can happily go down this corridor right here and smash this door. And it can chase your characters into this open hallway. So let's discuss what I did with the blind painters then. Well, I ignored them painting Lord Brixton. I changed that painting for something else, but I'll get to that later on. So I had this painter here. He was painting a drawing of our bard who set off the first trap when you enter the Tomb of the Nine Gods in area 4A. This room opens up and he got impaled. So I had that image right away. And the next image I shown was from level 2 Dungeon of Deception, where 2 of our player characters are in this room in the mirror dimension as this room began to fill with wine. And our 2 characters are outside this stone door and they couldn't get them. I thought those moments were thematic because when we played this game, we didn't play a weekly game. So for instance, these scenarios happened months in the past, and it allowed the characters to remember how many things they've actually done in this dungeon and how much they've overcame. And also at this point, we had no player deaths as well. That was the most harrowing near-death experiences player characters had at this point. And for the final painter, what I did was I had this painter looking ashamed on his knees on the floor. And on the wall, there was a velvet curtain covering a section of it, of the painting he had just drawn. And I asked the characters if they want to see behind this curtain or leave it be. And they're paranoid because they've seen so much death and carnage in this tomb. But they just pulled back just to see what it was like. And behind this painter had done a commission for Weathers. So what Weathers asked in my campaign was he wanted a picture of him and the Acererak having a lovely candlelit dinner at the seaside. And both of the characters, you had Weathers and Serac holding hands, and this picture showed the amount of love and care Weathers had for Serac. And it also allows for some comedy effect. When my player characters seen this, everyone's mouth opened wide and nobody said anything. As in, I thought it was hilarious, a bit to break the ice and give Weathers a bit more depth, give it a bit more comedy relief. So what I suggest is, if you really want to make this room a bit more interesting, you can make your own images, as in, if you want to have Weathers having a candlelit dinner with the Serac, go for it. If you've got any other ideas, remember, put it in the comments section below, and we can read and we'll have a laugh about it. What happens when your characters decide to attack these blind painters and they summon the zombie Tyrannosaurus Rex? How do I run this combat? Zombie Tyrannosaurus Rex is huge, so it's 15 foot tall, 15 foot wide, low armor class, it has 136 hit points. It's immensely strong with 25 strength, high con, however, every other stat is very, very low, and it's immune to being poisoned. Its main ability, which I think is fantastic, is that as a bonus action, it can dislodge a zombie from its mouth. And every turn after that, roll a d6. On a 1, the zombie T-Rex runs out of zombies to disgorge. And if he has this trait, when he dies, he explodes and 1d4 zombies crawl out of his corpse. As you've played this game, at this point, you've probably played many zombies before, but remember they have an ability called Undead Fortitude, which means that if you kill the zombie Tyrannosaurus Rex as your hit points, you've got to make a Constitution saving throw unless it's hit with a critical hit or radiant damage. And if it exceeds this Constitution saving throw, the zombie does not die, which means that even though it has 136 hit points, it might take 150, perhaps 200 hit points damage before it dies. One other thing to point out is it has a speed of 40, so it can outrun the majority of your players, especially if they're dwarves, so they can only walk 25 feet. And this is when the zombie T-Rex gets very interesting. It does a massive amount of damage. It can make 2 attacks, one with its bite and one with its tail, but you need to make sure that it's separate targets. And if it bites, so it's a plus 10 to hit, so it's very likely to hit. Both its tail and its bite has a 10-foot reach, which is typically much larger than your player character's 5 feet, unless they're using a polearm. If it hits with a bite attack, it's 33 points of damage, and if your target is medium or smaller, it is grappled with a DC 17 escape. So if I was dealing with this combat, what I'll do is I'll get my T-Rex just to cause carnage and attack as many people as possible. I'll try to bite one character and slap its tail against someone else. And with 33 hit points of damage, it can potentially kill wizards or rogues in one hit at lower levels. So I introduced the zombie T-Rex to my party in the jungles of Chult before they got to the Tomb of Annihilation. And this point when they met them, they were level 5 and they were terrified of the zombie T-Rex and they ran away. But they met it in the tomb. They were at level 11 at this point and they actually fought it off very well. They used these ledges, kept range, and they killed it within 3 turns. When your characters get to the point of the tomb, they're probably at least level 10, perhaps it'll be level 11 or 12. Your characters can kill the zombie T-Rex quite easily, however, it still potentially could kill a player character. And if it's 1-on-1, it definitely can do some damage. If 4 or 5 characters attack the zombie T-Rex at the same time, due to the action economy, it's probably going to lose. That is my favourite monster in the Tomb of Annihilation. Down in the comment section below, let me know what your favourite monster is. And then we're finally going to discuss what this throne is and why the throne is interesting. So this throne is made from the skin and bones of Ammalian warriors, and it's piled around the skulls of Ammalian children. And as we discussed before, the skull on top from the Minotaur guardian of Omo named Cargos. If any creature touches the skull or sits on the throne, it must make a DC 16 charisma saving throw or become cursed with the rage of Cargos. And this works in conjunction with the blind painters. Your characters, when cursed, will gain 50 temporary hit points and they'll go berserk, and the victim is forced to attack the nearest creature, which potentially could be the blind painters, which will then trigger the zombie T-Rex to come out. So it must attack the nearest creature with melee attacks. It can't make ranged attacks or cast spells. The curse ends if the berserk creature drops to 0 hit points, so is knocked unconscious, or if Greater Restoration or Remove Curse spell is cast upon it. So potentially you could have a zombie T-Rex attacking your party, and then one of your party members could be cursed with the Rage of Cargos. So you'd have not only one player character attack the party, you could also have the T-Rex as well. And on this throne, you have an iron scepter. So Serac's scepter is made of solid iron and has an adamantine head. It's non-magical, It weighs 12 pounds and can be wielded as a mace. Its magical twin is hidden in Area 53. So quick synopsis of the room. Usually you come in and you have this weighted door, so you get attacked by the ghasts. You have the blind painters. If you attack the blind painters, it will trigger the zombie Tyrannosaurus Rex. If any player characters touch this throne, they can be cursed with the Rage of Kargos, and they will attack everything they can see. And on sides, you have these statues, which I've not mentioned yet. So the wooden statues are harmless, and they weigh 150 pounds each. Behind the statue in the northwest alcove, a secret door leads to Area 53. The door is slightly ajar, and any character who starts the alcove will automatically find it. And there's a secret door here which will lead you to Wizard's Workshop as well, and from Area 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. This one here is easy to find. So what is in Area 53? Area 53, Crypt of the Sun Queen. The walls of this room are adorned with tile mosaics of a jungle city intermingled with frescoes of flowering plants, birds, insects, and the humans wearing gold skirts and carrying spears and ornate jugs. The ceiling is painted to look like a clear blue sky. A small bejeweled cockroach rests atop a sarcophagus of black basalt in the middle of the room. A 2-foot diameter orb hanging from a chain above the sarcophagus is made of hammered gold to resemble a smiling sun. So with Area 53 right here, first I'm going to discuss this golden sun. I'm then going to discuss the treasure on top of the sarcophagus, and then I'm going to discuss what's in the sarcophagus, which is the remains of Napaka, the Queen of Omu. So with this golden sun, whenever the sun or its chain are touched or damaged, the sun's smile fades into an inscrutable expression, and it emits a tremendous amount of heat in a 20-foot radius sphere centering upon it. Any creature that starts its turn in the area takes 3d6 fire damage, and this effect will end once the characters leave the area. So with this room, it's 15 foot wide. If this effect does take place, it will burn everything to here. So you just make the assumption that any characters are within this room and the sun's touched, it'll be attacked by this burning ability. But once they leave, it'll stop, and then it'll only trigger this ability again once he's touched again. The first time the Queen's remains or any of her treasures are removed from the sarcophagus, the sun's expression turns angry and emits rays of shearing light. Each creature within 30 feet of the sun that doesn't have total cover against it must succeed in a DC 14 dexterity saving throw, or be struck by a ray that deals 12d6 fire damage. The sun loses a magical ability when it shoots its rays or it's destroyed. So this ray attack only happens once. So if you're trying to touch the treasure or touch the remains of Napaka, this sun will fire a ray upon you. And it does a tremendous amount of damage, 12d6, but once this happens, it can't use his magic anymore. And the sun and its chain are treated as a single object. It's immune to fire, poison, and psychic damage, has an AC of 15, and it only has 22 hit points. And just quick synopsis, remember, this sun here does a little bit of damage. If you touch it, as soon as you touch the treasure, it does one big attack, and then it uses its magic. So now let's look on the sarcophagus and what treasure on top of it. So if your characters cast a detect magic spell, or a spell has a similar effect, or is of evocation magic around the golden sun and bejeweled cockroach are shown. The lid of this black sarcophagus bears the name etched in common, Napaka, and Napaka was the Queen of Omu before it fell to Cyrac. The lid is sealed with strips of melted lead that can be easily taken away, and you can move the lid of the sarcophagus with a DC 15 strength logic check. Top of the sarcophagus, you have a jewelry box. This jewelry box is shaped like a cockroach. It is made of gold and has precious gems, including black pearls for its eyes. It's worth 1,500 gold pieces, it weighs about 5 pounds, and it contains 2 items. The first is a small jade key shaped like a crocodile that's used to open a door in 62B. So in 62B, you have this machine that's a massive steamroller that will go down and crush your party members as they go into this room. And this key opens a door here, which allows you to access the machine. This machine is also named after the Queen of Omu Napaka, but I'll discuss this in a future episode when we're in level 5, the Gears of Hate. And the second magic item is a necklace of fireballs with 8 beads remaining. Cyrac has placed a curse in this necklace, which can be revealed with an identifying spell. When any creature dons this cursed necklace, all the beads will detonate at once. Each creature within a 20-foot radius, which is the entirety of this room, must make a DC 15 dexterity saving throw. The wearer will automatically fail it, and they will take 16d6 fire damage on a failed save, or half as much in a successful one, which is 56 damage on average. And a remove curse spell or similar magic removes the curse from the necklace. So as soon as your character puts on this necklace, it's going to explode. And why do characters want a necklace of fireballs? So a necklace of fireballs will typically have 1d6 plus 3 beads hanging from it. And you can use an action to throw a bead up to 60 feet away from you. And as it reaches its endless trajectory, it detonates as a 3rd level fireball spell with the DC save of 15. Why people really like this necklace is that if you have a fighter that can't do any spells, they can do action surge, which means that potentially they can cast a fireball spell twice, which a wizard or sorcerer can't do. And some people can min-max their character in such a way that if they have a necklace of fireballs, they could cast fireball 3 or 4 times in a single turn. So I'm going to discuss at the end of this room why this necklace was really important to my campaign. So let's now look inside the sarcophagus. The sarcophagus contains the magical preserved remains of Queen Napaka. She wears tattered remains of a black gown and a hornet mask made of painted gold, which is 250 gold pieces. In her left hand, Napaka holds an iron scepter with an adamantium head, which is much lighter than it appears, 5 pounds. A detect magic spell or similar effect reveals an aura of transmutation magic around the scepter, which can be used to destroy the stone juggernaut in Area 62, which we saw earlier on with the crocodile key. Casting Identify or Legend Lore on the scepter reveals that it has a singular purpose to destroy a construct named after Napaka, which we've seen before is this giant steamroller that can crush your party members. If the scepter is removed and not immediately replaced with its non-magical twin from the throne of Cargos, or if Napaka's remains are removed from the resting place, the queen's corpse opens its mouth in a wide yawn and exhales a full black gas that fills a 15-foot cube centered on it. And again, 15-foot cube is the exact same size as this room. Your characters must make a DC 18 Constitution saving throw, or they take 7d12 necrotic damage on a failed save for half as much in a successful one. So with the package, since she is a corpse, this makes having a cleric really, really important, because if you can talk to Napaka with a Speak with Dead spell, you can then bring out a lot of lore from Omu. So if your characters ask Napaka, she can give you some answers. So for instance, Napaka came to believe that the gods of Omu were not truly divine beings, but were rather trickster spirits that had fooled the Malian people and they're worshipping them. The queen remembers the Serac killing the trickster gods and enslaving the Malians, but she knows nothing of the Tomb of the Trickster Gods, which was built after her death. She knows that few members of the royal family fled Omu, but she's unaware that the Arakor are sheltering her great-grandchild at Kursabal. Napaka knows that her great-grandmother Sakura languishes in the ruins of Nagalnor. Even in death, Napaka pines for Omu to be reborn and repopulate. However, what she desires above all is the destruction of the Serac. So a quick synopsis of this: if you touch Queen Napaka or remove her remains, she'll sit up and she'll yawn this black gas. The way I think about it is if you've seen the film The Mummy with Brendan Fraser in the early 2000s, when Imhotep comes up and attacks everyone, that's what I think of. The only way to stop her from doing this is by swapping the scepter from this throne here with the one in her hand, and that allows you to destroy the construct in Area 62. So I'm now going to explain what happened to my characters with this room. The way my players went through this room was very interesting, because in Area 50, the Mirror of Life trapping, you can be introduced to a character called Lukalu, who is Napaka's bodyguard. And her sole goal is to find Napaka and figure out what her duties are. And also, because she's in the scorpion armor, as I've discussed in the previous episode, used her as a plot device to show that Napaka was a cruel ruler and that she was forced into servitude at a very young age. So with Lukalu, it allowed me to introduce Omu and tell the facts, which Napaka can do with Speak with Undead. And because the characters already knew the lore of Omu, I didn't need to introduce Queen Napaka here. So what I did with this room was I had Lukalu go up to Area 51. First thing she did was she put her arm under the snake sculpture and sacrificed her own blood, which kind of showed the player characters her determination, how serious she was. And as we went into the throne room, she knew who Cargos was and respected him, which gave Cargos more context in the campaign as well. And once she got into Area 53 and she's seen Napaka's tomb, the characters can see the relationship. And what she did was she asked player characters if she could borrow and use the necklace of fireballs as memory of Napaka, because I gave this necklace as Napaka's personal necklace, not just some magic item. And she wanted to wear this necklace to show respect for her former ruler and boss, and just it's something to remember her by. So what happened was Lukalu was introduced. She got the characters into 51 because my characters wouldn't have sacrificed the blood. They would have just skipped this room completely, but I allowed it to show the characters how strong and how fierce Lukalu was to find her ruler and see if she was still alive. So when she came into this room, and she put on the necklace. The characters looked at the horror as the necklace blew up. And because it does a lot of damage, I just decided that this necklace would kill Lucalu right away. And also to show the characters that Serac is a truly evil bad man. And because of this explosion, it also triggered Napaka, which blew up the room as well as the characters begin to flee. And it worked out really well because in the previous room I had comedy effect, and then I used this room as a shock and awe. It also meant that I didn't accidentally kill a player by then just putting on a necklace without identifying. And I didn't want to kill a character just for the sake of killing a character. And I thought this worked as a very good plot development. So that's how I ran this room. And again, it's one of my favorite rooms, Tomb of Annihilation. On the next episode, we're going to go down to Gears of Hate. And since it is episode 15, I'm going to give you a quick channel update because you've listened so far for the episode. So what we're going to do next is level 5, hopefully finish the campaign in the next 5-6 episodes. Hopefully. I'm also going to do another series called The DM's Guide to Unearthed Arcana when I explain new Unearthed Arcana that's coming out as well. And also, I'm now professional DM, so if you're interested in playing a game with me and hiring me professionally, let me know in the comment section below. And again, if you like this content, like and subscribe. And if you're feeling generous, have a Patreon link in the description below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.